Hi everyone, welcome to this in-depth analysis of the beautiful poem Hard to Find by Sinesipo Jojo. This poem might be short, but don't let that fool you. It's packed with deep meaning and powerful imagery that speaks to something we've all felt. The struggle to say how we really feel when words suddenly fail us. In this video, we're going to explore the poem thoroughly. We'll study the meaning, dig into the language and imagery, uncover important themes, and help you understand it deeply. My goal is to make this poem easy to understand, even fun to study, and that you will feel confident and ready for your exam. So let's get started and dive into Hard to Find. Before we start with our analysis of the poem, let's start with a quick look at the poet herself. Sinesipo Jojo was born in 1993 in Port St. John's in the Eastern Cape. She discovered her passion for words while still in high school and later joined a creative writing workshop at Nelson Mandela University. Now, also a psychologist, Jojo brings emotional depth and personal insight into her poetry. For her, writing is a way of understanding and expressing feelings, and helping others connect with them too. Her poems are inspired by real life and show us how poetry can help us make sense of the emotional chaos within. According to Sinesipo herself, Hard to Find was inspired by her personal relation to the struggle to express deep emotions. The poem began as a journal entry reflecting on how this affects her. Knowing this helps us understand why Hard to Find explores such deep feelings and relationships so honestly and powerfully. Here are a few interesting facts. Beyond being a poet and psychologist, Sinesipo is also a mom and founder of the Makwende Foundation, showing her passion for life and commitment to making a positive impact. Her Instagram reflects her positive vibe. #mom, unbothered, a lover of life and good vibes only, which adds an inspiring personal side to her powerful poetry. Sinesipo, thank you so much for writing such a powerful poem that resonates with so many learners. Now, let's listen carefully to the poem itself. As you listen, try to picture the scenes in your mind and pay attention to how the poem makes you feel. Hard to Find by Sinesipo Jojo. Words are everywhere. Daily, we read them and they fly out like nobody's business when we are provoked. But there's always something hard to understand. They are hard to find when they are needed by the heart. When the heart feels, words hide like they are not part of life. While words are busy playing some twisted game, my heart looks sadly through the glass windows as the raindrops slowly slide down, gently on a cloudy lifetime, hoping that one day words will realize what my heart wants to say. Beautiful, isn't it? At first glance, the poem feels simple, but there's so much depth beneath the surface. Let's take a closer look at what this poem is really saying in the next part of our analysis. At its core, Hard to Find is about something all of us have experienced. Those moments when we need the right words the most, but they just don't come. It's ironic, isn't it? We use words all the time, casually, carelessly, even when we're angry, they just fly out. But when we're feeling something deep, something real, the words suddenly disappear. That's what Jojo is capturing here. The speaker is frustrated. There are so many words in the world, and yet, when her heart wants to speak, when she's emotional or vulnerable, the words are nowhere to be found. Let's break it down by sections. In lines 1 to 5, the poet starts by showing us how common words are. They're everywhere. The word daily in line 2, standing alone, emphasizes just how routine it is to use words. In lines 3 and 4, the speaker says that when we're provoked, like when we're angry or upset, words come out quickly and without much effort. The ellipsis after provoked suggests those rushed emotional outbursts. But then, in line 5, we get a shift. The word but signals a change. The speaker is now introducing a problem. There's something hard to understand. That something is the difficulty of expressing deep emotions. In lines 6 to 9, these lines explain that when the heart is feeling something powerful or emotional, that's exactly when words become hard to find. The poem suggests that when we speak from the mind, words come easily. But when we speak from the heart, it's like words hide, as if they don't belong to real life anymore. In lines 10 to 15, this is where the speaker gets really emotional. She describes words as playing some twisted game, like they're intentionally avoiding her. That line gives the poem a tone of frustration, maybe even sadness. She looks out through glass windows, watching the raindrops slide down. This isn't just a physical description, it's symbolic. The glass represents her eyes, and the raindrops are like tears. The cloudy lifetime paints a picture of long-term emotional pain, not just a passing sadness, but something that's lasted for years. But there's still a little hope. In the final 2 lines, she says she's hoping that one day words will understand what her heart is trying to say. The last line stands alone, and that gives it emphasis. It leaves us with a feeling of quiet hope that things might change. This poem is deeply emotional, but it doesn't shout. It's soft, reflective, and real. And remember, Sinesipo Jojo is a psychologist too, so she understands how difficult it is to express emotions. This poem feels like her way of saying, I get it. Sometimes feelings are too big for words. Can you remember a time when you felt something deeply, but just couldn't find the right words to say it? That's exactly what this poem is about. We've spent time unpacking the poem, so let's bring it all together with a quick summary of the key ideas, the feelings and themes that run throughout the poem. The speaker in Hard to Find is experiencing something many of us know well, that moment when emotions take over and words suddenly disappear. The poem captures this emotional tension through several key ideas. First, there's a feeling of being trapped. The speaker feels stuck in her emotions, as if there's no clear way to express how she feels. Even the weather in the poem, cloudy and rainy, mirrors her inner state. She's not just telling us she's sad, she's showing it through the world around her. Then, there's the idea of hide and seek. The poet is frustrated that when she needs words the most, to speak from the heart, they seem to run away and hide, almost like they're playing a cruel game, refusing to help her say what she truly feels. This leads us to the irony. Even though we're surrounded by thousands of words every day, the right ones are often the hardest to find, especially when it comes to describing deep emotions. That's the emotional contradiction at the center of the poem. We also see a contrast in how we use words. In daily life, or when we are angry, words come out easily, without effort, sometimes even without thinking. But in emotional moments, when the heart is speaking, words become distant and difficult. And finally, there's the idea of thoughtless speech. Jojo reminds us that we often speak without thinking. Yet, when we want to speak meaningfully, we struggle. This shows how complex our relationship with language really is. To help us fully understand these ideas, let's take a moment to look at some key vocabulary from the poem. Knowing the meaning of these words will help us unlock the poem's deeper message and make the analysis easier to remember for your exams. Here's a list of key words from the poem that you need to understand. These words are important because they help unlock the poem's deeper meaning. None of them are very difficult, but take your time to go through each one carefully. Pause the video if you need to, look up any words you're unsure of, and make sure you are clear on their meanings in the context of the poem. This step is really important. Knowing these words will help you answer questions confidently in your exam. Now that you've got a good grasp of the vocabulary, let's look at the poem's type and structure, how it's put together, and why that matters for the meaning. Understanding a poem isn't just about what it says, it's also about how it's built. The type of poem tells us what kind of poem it is, while the structure refers to how the poem is organized, how the stanzas and lines are arranged, and how the poem flows. Both of these help us understand the tone, pace, and emotional effect of the poem. The type. Hard to Find is a lyrical poem, short, emotional, and musical in tone. It's written in the first person, which means the speaker uses I and shares her own thoughts and emotions directly with us. It feels like we're being allowed into her inner world. She's being open and honest about how difficult it is to express deep feelings. This personal and emotional style makes the poem relatable and heartfelt. The structure. The way the poem is arranged supports the message perfectly. It's made up of 5 stanzas, and both the stanza lengths and line lengths vary. This gives the poem a natural, unforced rhythm. There's no rhyme scheme or strict format. It's written in free verse, which means the poet isn't following formal rules. This suits the theme. Emotions don't follow rules either. Interestingly, the poem only uses 2 full sentences, and it has very little punctuation. This creates enjambment, where one line flows smoothly into the next without a pause. The result? A gently continuous rhythm, like the speaker's emotions pouring out without interruption. Now that we've looked at the type and structure of the poem, how it's written and put together, let's turn our attention to the tone and mood. Just a quick reminder, tone is the poet's attitude or feelings towards the subject. It's how the speaker sounds. Mood is the emotional atmosphere. It's how the poem makes you, the reader, feel. These 2 elements work closely with the structure and word choices to shape our emotional response to the poem. Let's explore how they come across in Hard to Find. The overall mood of the poem is one of sadness and surprise. Sadness about the struggle to find the right words when they are needed most, and surprise at how difficult it can be. However, by the final lines, this mood shifts to one of hope and optimism, as the speaker expresses the possibility that words will come again. The tone changes throughout the poem. In the first 3 stanzas, it's reflective and questioning, with a sense of dissatisfaction about why words sometimes fail us. In stanza 4, the tone deepens into unhappiness, sadness, and despondency. The speaker's frustration becomes stronger. Finally, in stanza 5, the tone moves towards resignation, acceptance, and a gentle optimism. The speaker accepts the struggle, but hopes for better days. Throughout, the speaker is thoughtful and introspective. pondering why expressing strong emotions is so hard. But despite the sadness, there's a hopeful feeling by the end, a wish that words will one day be easier to find. Understanding tone and mood helps us feel the emotions behind the words, making the poem's message even more powerful. Now that we know how the poem is put together, let's look at the title, Hard to Find. It's simple but powerful, and it captures the essence of the whole poem. The title Hard to Find might seem straightforward at first, but it holds a lot of meaning. It reflects the speaker's experience of struggling to find the right words, especially when emotions run high. We talk every day. We write, we argue, words are everywhere. But in those moments when we truly need to express ourselves, when we feel something deeply, the words vanish. That's what makes the title so effective. It captures that frustration of knowing what you feel, but not being able to say it. It also hints at a sense of searching, as if the speaker is on a personal mission to find words that always seem just out of reach. We even see the exact phrase repeated in line 6, which ties the title directly into the body of the poem and emphasizes its emotional weight. And here's where the irony comes in. The speaker is a poet, someone who works with words, who understands their power, and yet she too finds them missing when she needs them most. That contrast adds depth and relatability. It reminds us that emotions don't always fit neatly into language, no matter how skilled we are. Now that we've explored the meaning and power behind the title, we can move into the bigger picture. Let's talk about the themes of the poem. These are the critical ideas or messages the poet is exploring. Themes help us understand what the poem is really about, beyond the words on the page. Poems often explore big ideas, emotional truths, or life experiences we all relate to. These are called themes, and they help us understand why the poet wrote the poem and what message they want to leave with us. Let's look at two key themes in Hard to Find. Communication. One of the most important ideas in this poem is how difficult it can be to communicate clearly, especially when we're emotional. We use words every day to talk, write, argue, explain, and when we're angry or passionate, words can fly out easily. But the poet shows us that in vulnerable moments, when we really want to express what we're feeling, words sometimes let us down. They hide, and we're left in silence, unsure how to speak our truth. This theme reminds us that communication isn't always easy, even when we have all the words we need, because some emotions are too complex or overwhelming to put into language. This struggle with communication leads to the second theme, sadness. When the speaker can't express what's in her heart, it creates a deep emotional weight. That's where the imagery of the raindrops and glass windows come in. These aren't just weather details, they reflect her inner world. The speaker says her heart looks sadly through the glass windows. It's a powerful image of emotional isolation. The raindrops become a symbol of tears, and the glass becomes the barrier between what she feels and what she can express. It's not just a moment of sadness, it's a feeling that's been building for a long time, possibly a cloudy lifetime, as the poem says. But sadness and silence aren't the only themes in the poem. There's also a deeper emotional struggle at play, one that speaks to vulnerability, hope, and the search for understanding. Let's explore those next. Let's wrap up the poem's key themes with a quick overview. Words and communication. Words are part of our daily lives. We speak, read, and write all the time. But as the poem shows, words don't always come when we really need them, especially during emotional moments. This leads to the next theme, struggling to express feelings. The speaker feels stuck. She wants to express deep emotions, but the words just aren't there. That struggle creates sadness and frustration, and that ties into the power of words. Even though words can be difficult to find, they carry massive power. They can hurt, help, heal, or harm. They shape how we experience the world. But the poem also reminds us words and emotions are closely connected. The speaker's heart is full of longing, but the right words are missing. This shows how emotions and language are often deeply linked. This brings us to a deeper idea, communication and the need to be understood. More than anything, the speaker just wants her feelings to be understood. She hopes words will eventually say what her heart can't. Finally, let's not forget time and longing. The raindrops and the cloudy lifetime suggest that these feelings have lasted a long time. They also show life's uncertainty and the speaker's longing for clarity and emotional release. Right, hang in there, lads. Now that we've covered the themes, it's time to do our line-by-line analysis. Lines 1 to 2. Words are everywhere, daily. The poem opens with a bold statement. Words are everywhere. That's an example of hyperbole, an exaggeration used to make a point. It shows just how common and abundant words are in our lives. And she's right. We read them, speak them, type them, scroll through them. We're surrounded by words from morning to night. The next line is just one word, daily. This short one-word line is a structural choice. It draws attention to how often we use words every single day without even thinking about it. These first two lines remind us that verbal communication is part of our routine. Words are always available, or so it seems. And there's something interesting. From this point on, words are personified throughout the poem. That means the poet treats them as if they have human qualities, like hiding, playing, or realizing. This sets the stage for the emotional journey that follows. Line 3. We read them and they fly out. This line starts with the word we, which is important. It pulls us into the poem, not just the poet or the speaker, but all of us. This makes the message feel universal. Everyone has experienced this strange relationship with words. At first, we're reminded that we read words all the time, in books, messages, signs, they're everywhere. But then comes a shift. They fly out. This is a metaphor, comparing words to birds. The poet imagines words as if they grow wings and take off. It is a powerful image that shows just how quickly and uncontrollably words can escape, especially when we're emotional. Think about when someone gets really angry. Words fly out of their mouths, fast, wild, and unfiltered. And just like startled birds, those words can hurt others or cause damage because they're not carefully chosen. This line also sets up a contrast with earlier lines. First, words are everywhere. calm, accessible. But now they're flying out, full of motion and emotion. The mood is changing, and the poet is building up to something deeper. Line 4. Like nobody's business when we are provoked. This line uses an informal phrase, like nobody's business. It's a simile, a comparison using like. The speaker uses this slang expression to show how intensely and excessively we speak when we are emotional, especially when we are provoked. The word provoked means to be made angry or upset, to be emotionally triggered. And when that happens, the poet suggests that words explode from us. We often say things without thinking, words we later regret, because they come from a place of frustration or pain. Now notice the punctuation at the end of the line, an ellipsis, those 3 dots. This is important. The ellipsis creates a pause, and it suggests that the thought isn't finished, that there's more emotion building under the surface. It also mirrors how people talk when they're overwhelmed or holding something back. And in this context, the ellipsis helps to emphasize that words can come out in a continuous, uncontrolled flow when we're upset, which links back to the earlier metaphor of words flying out. So far, the poet has shown us how words can rush out when we're angry, but in the next line she introduces a major shift. What happens when we want to speak, but the words just aren't there? Line 5. But there's always something hard to understand. This short line marks a clear turning point in the poem. The word but signals a change in direction. Up until now, the speaker has focused on how words can rush out, especially when we're angry. But here, she introduces a contradiction. Not all words come easily. And notice how the poet isolates this line. It stands on its own, with an ellipsis at the end. That pause creates a space for reflection. It slows the pace of the poem and gives us time to think. The speaker is telling us that while words can sometimes be overwhelming, there are moments when they are painfully absent, and that's what she finds difficult to understand. The word something is deliberately vague. It's unspecified, which makes it feel mysterious or unresolved. It could refer to the strange silence we experience when we want to express emotions but can't. It could even refer to the emotion itself, so powerful that it becomes hard to explain or put into words. Finally, Hart emphasizes that this isn't just about language, it's about the emotional difficulty of understanding what we feel and finding the words to share it. In the next few lines, the speaker starts to explore exactly what makes it so hard to express these emotions and how that silence affects the heart. Line 6. They are hard to find. This is a key moment in the poem. It answers the question raised in the previous line. What's hard to find? The answer? Words. The very thing the speaker relies on suddenly becomes unavailable when she needs it most. The pronoun they refers back to the words, and here they're being personified, treated as if they have human qualities. The poet imagines the words as having a will of their own, choosing to disappear when she needs them most. That's where her frustration comes in. How can something that's usually so easy, even automatic, become so impossible when it matters? There's also a clear contrast or antithesis between earlier in the poem when words fly out without control and now when they are hard to find. This shift in tone shows how unpredictable and unreliable words can be when emotions are involved. And let's not miss the repetition of the title here. Hard to Find isn't just the poem's name. It's repeated deliberately to emphasize the speaker's struggle. The title now feels more personal, more real, and even more painful. So, what happens when the words disappear and the emotions are still there? In the next few lines, the speaker shows us how this silence affects the heart. Line 7. When they are needed by the heart. We're still talking about words here. The pronoun they refers back to them. But now we've moved deeper into the poem's emotional core. The poet tells us that words are hard to find when they're needed most, by the heart. Here, the heart becomes a symbol of deep emotional need, a stand-in for our feelings, vulnerability, and longing. This is a great example of personification. The heart is described as if it is a person, one who has needs and is waiting for words to show up and help it speak. It's also a type of synecdoche or metonymy, where a part of something represents the whole. The heart here stands in for the speaker as a whole person, feeling something she can't express. Just a quick clarification. Metonymy versus synecdoche. You might come across a question asking about metonymy in this poem, especially in relation to the heart. But technically, the correct figure of speech is synecdoche, not metonymy. Metonymy is when something closely associated with something else is used to represent it. For example, the pen is mightier than the sword, where pen represents writing and sword represents war. Synecdoche, on the other hand, is when a part is used to represent the whole. In this poem, the heart represents the entire person and their emotions. So, while the heart is often described metonymically in everyday language, in Hard to Find, it's more accurate to say the poet uses synecdoche. The heart stands in for the speaker herself. In an exam, if asked about metonymy, you can write about how the heart represents the person, but mention that it's technically synecdoche. This shows critical insight, and markers will likely reward you for the clarification. Notice the placement, the word heart is right at the end of the line. That adds emphasis. It leaves the reader thinking about emotional need and how serious it is when words go missing. And then there's the semicolon. It creates a thoughtful pause, not a full stop, but enough to give us time to reflect on what the heart wants and what it's not getting. Let's keep going and see how this emotional tension builds. The next lines show us just how far the heart will go in its search for expression and how powerless it can feel. Line 8. When the heart feels. This line continues the personification of the heart, treating it like a real person with thoughts and feelings. The poet gives the heart human qualities, showing us how deeply it's affected by emotion. The heart, as the emotional center of the body, is not just feeling, it's also struggling. It wants to speak, to express what it feels, but the right words aren't there. That makes it feel hurt, frustrated, or even helpless. The phrase, when the heart feels, refers to specific, intense emotions, not everyday feelings. These are the kind that overwhelm you, the kind that are so big or confusing that you don't even know where to start. The line captures that all too familiar experience when you feel everything, sadness, love, anger, confusion, but you just can't find the words to explain any of it. In the next line, the poet takes this even further. She shows us what the heart does when the words refuse to come. Let's see how the imagery begins to shift. Line 9. Words hide like they are not part of life. This line brings out two powerful figures of speech, personification and simile. First, the poet continues to personify the words. They are no longer just tools for communication. They are behaving like someone playing a game of hide and seek. They hide on purpose, just when they are needed most. Then she uses a simile, like they are not part of life. This comparison shows just how far away and impossibly out of reach the words feel. It's as if they don't even exist, like they've abandoned her in her moment of emotional need. When we feel something deeply, grief, heartbreak, disappointment, even love, we often say, "I don't know what to say." That's exactly what this line captures. And this emotional silence can be painful. There's a desperate need to express, to work through what we feel, but the words we need seem to disappear. And that silence can feel just as heavy as the emotion itself. In the next part of the poem, this sadness deepens, and the poet uses a powerful image of weather to reflect how her heart is feeling. Line 10. While words are busy playing some twisted game, the poet now takes the personification even further. Not only do words hide, but now they're playing a twisted game. This suggests that the words are intentionally cruel, almost as if they're mocking the speaker's struggle. Think about that. Words, the very things she relies on to express herself, are now behaving like people who are manipulative, sneaky, and uncaring. It's a powerful metaphor that shows just how emotionally abandoned the speaker feels. The phrase twisted game implies something complicated, hurtful, and unfair. A game with no rules, where the speaker always loses. It's as if the words are not just unavailable, but they're deliberately causing pain by staying hidden. This line expresses deep frustration and sadness. The poet feels betrayed by something that should help her. It's not just that she can't find the right words, it's that the words are avoiding her on purpose, making her emotional struggle even worse. Let's see how this emotional pain is described in the next lines, where the speaker uses a powerful image of weather and windows to show the depth of her sadness. Line 11. My heart looks sadly through the glass windows. This line draws us deep into the speaker's personal world. The use of my makes it intimate. This is no longer a general idea about language. It's now personal, and the speaker is sharing her own inner sadness. We see more personification of the heart. This time, the heart is imagined as a person staring out of a window, full of emotion. It isn't just feeling anymore. It's observing, reflecting, and hurting. There's also a beautiful and layered metaphor here. Glass windows represent the speaker's eyes, filled with tears. Think of someone staring out a rainy window, watching the droplets fall. It's a perfect image of quiet sadness. The glass windows are clear, like eyes, but they also create a kind of barrier. They let you see out, but not express what's inside. This suggests that the speaker's emotions are trapped, unable to break through and become words. There's also synecdoche at work. The heart represents the entire person, and its inability to express emotion results in both inner and visible sadness. The overall tone here is unmistakably sad, reflective, and even a little hopeless. But as the rain falls and the heart watches in silence, the next line introduces a powerful visual image, one that connects weather and emotion in a striking way. Line 12. As the raindrops slowly slide down, gently. This line is soft, calm, and deeply emotional. The poet uses sound, imagery, and structure to show just how heavy the speaker's sadness feels. First, listen to the sound of the line. There's S alliteration, sadly, slowly, slide. These repeated S sounds create a slow, soothing rhythm, almost like a whisper. It mirrors the way tears fall silently, and it draws out the speaker's sorrow. Then we have a metaphor. The raindrops on the window are compared to tears sliding down someone's face. It's a familiar image. Someone looking out at the rain, eyes full of tears, quietly hurting. That creates a powerful, sad atmosphere. The poet also uses inversion. The word gently is placed at the end of the line on purpose. It slows the line right down and focuses our attention on the way the tears fall, not in a dramatic outburst, but gently, like silent grief. And there's a meaningful antithesis here too. Back in line 3, the words fly out in a rush of emotion. But now, in line 12, everything is slow and gentle. That contrast shows how, when we're angry, we often speak too quickly and hurt others. But when we're deeply sad or emotionally wounded, we can barely find the words at all. In the next line, the poet takes that quiet sadness and connects it to something even larger, a whole lifetime of emotion hidden behind the silence. Lines 13 to 14. On a cloudy lifetime, hoping that one day. Here, the poet uses powerful weather imagery, raindrops and clouds, to create a sad and heavy atmosphere. The word cloudy suggests feelings of sadness, worry, and a brooding mood. It's like the sky is dark and grey, just like the speaker's emotions. The phrase cloudy lifetime is especially meaningful. It hints at a life filled with ongoing sadness or emotional struggle. Not just a moment of pain, but something that feels like it could last forever. This is a strong metaphor, comparing a long time of sadness to an endless cloudy day, one with no sunshine or hope. It shows how the speaker feels stuck in this emotional gray zone when words fail her. There's also a clever antithesis between daily from earlier in the poem, when words come easily and without much thought, and one day here, a hopeful but uncertain time in the future when the right words might finally be found. Importantly, one day isn't a fixed moment. It is a vague hope, something the speaker longs for but can't quite predict. And with that hope, the poem ends, leaving us with a bittersweet feeling. In the final line, the speaker expresses a deep wish that words will someday understand the heart's true feelings. Line 15. Words will realize what my heart wants to say. Here, words are once again personified, but this time as if they are capable of realizing, understanding clearly what the speaker's heart is trying to express. The repetition of my highlights the speaker's deep personal struggle. This is not just a general problem, but a very intimate one. Despite all the sadness and frustration throughout the poem, these last two lines carry a note of hope. The speaker believes that one day the right words will come, that she will be able to express herself fully and truly throughout poetry or speech. But this hope is fragile. There's no guarantee that the words will come, only a wish and a desire that they might. This final line leaves us with a feeling of optimism mixed with uncertainty, a realistic and relatable ending to the poem's emotional journey. Alright, now that we've explored the poem in depth, let's move on to something just as important, exam practice. In the next few slides, we'll look at possible questions you might get in a test or the NSC exam, along with model answers to help you prepare. These questions will test your understanding of poetic devices, your ability to interpret meaning, and your skill in explaining the poet's intention. It's not just about memorizing facts, it's about thinking critically and showing how well you understand the poem. So, grab your pen, pause the video if you need to, and make sure you're ready for anything the paper might throw your way. Feel free to pause the video while working through these questions. Take some time to reflect on your answers while working through the marking guidelines. That brings us to the end of Hard to Find by Sinesipo Jojo. We've explored the poem's powerful language, emotional depth, and the struggle between words and feelings. I hope this analysis helps you understand and appreciate the poem better and gives you confidence for your exam. Thank you, Sinesipo, for a great poem. Cheers!